In honor of the 90th anniversary of Route 66, the Albuquerque Museum is featuring Route 66, Radiance, Rust, and Revival on the Mother Road, an exhibition that explores the art, history, and popular culture of the iconic highway, from her hotly debated beginnings to her decades-long role as a pathway for adventurers, migrant workers, post-war veterans, tourists, hippies, and sentimental souls. Some say the history of Route 66 in Albuquerque has been overlooked.
Our history is really important and very unique.
Albuquerque Museum Curator of History Deb Slaney says our city has played a major role in the history of perhaps what is the world's most famous street, sitting right at the center of the southwestern leg of the route and boasting at 16 miles the longest single-city urban stretch of the highway in the nation.
I think what we're trying to say in the exhibit is that Albuquerque is uniquely tied to this national story, that we are a part of the Mother Road, that we are an important leg of its route. We're one of the most scenic and amazing parts of the route, and we're one of the most culturally diverse and accessible parts of the route.
Commissioned as a highway in 1966, it was actually a very popular route long before it was Route 66 as we've come to know it. Up until then, it also served as a road for trade, the Camino Real during the Spanish period and the Chihuahua Trail during the Mexican period.
By 1926, it also served as the National Old Trails Highway, and then it was converted to Route 66, moving north and south through Albuquerque between Los Lunas and Santa Fe.
That's right. Bet you didn't know that at one time the route also went north and south. It actually became an east-west route in 1937 as the result of a rather scandalous situation involving then New Mexico Governor Arthur Hannett, who, because he had lost his prior bid for governor, aimed to push the city of Santa Fe right off the road to economic benefit.
Highway Superintendent Clyde Tingley, who was also served as Albuquerque's mayor, also had a big influence in that, because by 1925 he was already sending Governor Hannett potential maps of how they could shorten the route around the Laguna area, and between that and the shortcut that was run to Moriarty, they were able to shave more than 100 miles off the route.
Before people started getting their kicks on Route 66, a lot was going on in our nation in the early part of the last century. Some of that captured by authors like John Steinbeck in his famous 1939 Depression-era novel, The Grapes of Wrath.
John Steinbeck coined that phrase in the book that he wrote about the Joad family and their travels from Oklahoma to California.
The exhibit explores Albuquerque's role in a lot of other national stories that were told in the early to mid-1900s. For instance, many tuberculosis patients used the route to get here because they heard the climate was better for them. Many came for the timber rush or the mining industry, or those little-known places like Kirtland Air Force Base and Sandia National Labs, both essentially right off of Route 66.
After the Dust Bowl and Depression era and after World War II, a lot of people who came here during the war, helping with the war effort, actually stayed here.
Between the 1920s and the 1940s, Albuquerque's population more than doubled. Travelers and tourists alike found that the route that had brought them here was now keeping them here.
Albuquerque often became a pass-through or a place for a quick overnight. But really, there was a lot of action here. There were people like Jules Allen, the cowboy singer, who was stopping in front of the Firestone station with his little dog, Jerry.
Jules Allen, who 10 years down the road and still in Albuquerque, was setting the stage for other famous cowboys and movie stars to bring their film talents here. Sound familiar?
And even Roy Rogers, whose family, the Sly family, moved to California in the 1930s and settled down and take root in California, and how that changed the history of film and television and music in the 20th century.
Thanks to lenders from across the country like the Autry National Center, which supplied Roy Rogers' guitar and cowboy boots, to the Smithsonian Museum of American Art, there are lots of key objects that will take exhibit goers on a metaphorical journey of art, memorabilia, poetry, music, and literature.
Through our good fortune and their generosity, we have some major objects in the exhibit. For example, the original cover page from Jack Kerouac's On the Road.
outsiders traveling Route 66 leaving their mark on New Mexico, as well as lots of interesting stories from those on the inside who made Route 66 part of their lives and left a legacy.
I'm thinking about people like author Frank Harlow, who was actually a physicist who worked at Los Alamos. And in the 1940s, he was tooling around on a 1940 Harley Davidson, and he was collecting Southwestern pottery. And as a result of this activity, he became a renowned author, authoring many, many books on Pueblo pottery.
Longtime locals like Skip Maisels and Bell Jewelers loaned some authentic Native American silver treasures representative of what could be purchased along the route back in the day. And also a unique approach taken to collecting historic Route 66 artifacts. The museum didn't look for the pristine or the over-restored.
We were looking for survivors. And so, for example, we have this wonderful Chevy pickup that we used in the migrant worker scene. We have an original Fry gas pump that is unrestored, that is perfect and of the period.
And then there's the show-stopping centerpiece of the whole Route 66 exhibit.
It's probably the most colorful and grandest neon sign in Albuquerque. It's a real icon.
The original Route 66 period neon sign from El Vado Motor Lodge in downtown Albuquerque.
It was an important motel because of its architecture, because it's probably the most intact and pure example of Pueblo Deco motel architecture of its time.
Built in the 1930s, it was called El Vado because it was actually located right on an historic fjord of the Rio Grande. Albuquerque Museum staff worked with the city's planning department to take care of the sign while the old motor court, or auto court as they were once called, undergoes restoration.
I believe it was built about 1937, and the sign itself might be a little bit more recent just by virtue of the fact that they used the word motel in it, which became kind of a 1950s term.
Longtime Duke City dwellers might also recall some of these other neon notables from Albuquerque's bygone days that have been salvaged and restored to their original working condition.
Signs from the Nob Hill Shoes department, which was owned by the first Hispanic business owners in Nob Hill. And Maze Music is another one. Paris Shoes, which is on loan to us. A lot of people remember shopping at Paris Shoes. The A&P Bar, which was a very important stopping point for the railroaders.
You can also see the works of some renowned contemporary photographers whose pictures tell a foreboding tale of what could happen to the storied route.
You kind of see how things like signage have deteriorated, how buildings have disappeared. You get a real sense that Route 66 has got the potential to disappear in our lifetime if we don't honor it and preserve it.
Capturing it, preserving it, and remembering it. There is an interest on the part of the entire world in this famed segment of Albuquerque's past and present.
We wanted to show how Albuquerque connects to the world and how the world can connect to Albuquerque, which is the mission of our museum, and I think we did that successfully here.
Route 66, Radiance, Rust, and Revival on the Mother Road will be at the Albuquerque Museum through October 2nd. Check out the city's website at cabq.gov/museum for hours and admission rates. There are free days at the museum as well as free Third Thursday programs running for the duration of the exhibit.
It's a great time to come to the museum and see what we have to offer.